In this video, I give you a walking tour of Chapinero, the neighborhood in Bogota for the best sushi, the best steak, the best hotels, and a decent glass of bourbon.
Hola, bienvenidos a Bogota, Colombia. Welcome to Bogota, Colombia. In this video, I'm going to give you a short walking tour of a neighborhood called Chapinero, a very upscale neighborhood in Bogota. But before I do, please hit the all-important subscribe, notification, and like buttons. Okay, so we are starting out this tour on the very top of the hill above Chapinero, and I want to point out some of the things I really like about Bogota now that I've come back here from Medellin, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Number one is the weather and climate. Right now it is 13 degrees Celsius. That's like mid 50s Fahrenheit. And I'm wearing clothing again. For the last 2 months in Medellin, a city that's called the Eternal Spring, I did not experience any spring in Medellin. I experienced eternal humidity, heat, and discomfort. There is very little air conditioning in the city, so even if you have air conditioning in your apartment or Airbnb, no air conditioning in the Ubers or taxis. It's just a sweaty place. So I'm glad to be back here in Bogota where the weather is cooler and I could sleep. I didn't have AC in the place where I was staying, so I don't think I got one good night's sleep in 2 months in Medellin. I slept 13 hours the first night I got to Bogota, 12 hours the next, and about 11 the third night. So yeah, sleep is good. Another thing, I guess that's similar between the two cities are the parks. They're both very, very pedestrian friendly cities. The parks and the bike paths and the sidewalks are all very walkable. One of the drawbacks about Bogota, however, is the elevation. I'm walking downhill right now and I'm out of breath because we are a good 8,000 plus feet above sea level. And it's taking me several days to acclimate to the altitude here. And today, I guess I should point out, is a very Bogota-esque day, meaning mostly cloudy. There was a little bit of rain, a little bit of breeze, and it's kind of cool. So if you are coming to Bogota, that's the kind of weather you should expect. We're exiting this hillside park and walking down into the Zona G area of Chapinero. A little background on why I'm familiar with this place goes all the way back to when I got out of film school in 1999. I had a friend in film school who's Colombian, who was the cinematographer on the first feature film that I wrote and directed. And after spending about a year helping me work on my film, he returned to Colombia and set up a film production company. And he initially produced 10 independent Colombian feature films, Spanish language feature films, and has since become one of the main producers of feature film content for both Netflix and Amazon. And recently he moved his office to this neighborhood, to Zona G, because it is the lesbian and gay neighborhood where all the good bars and restaurants are and all the swanky hotels. So when the Netflix and Amazon executives come to visit, he's able to put them up nearby in a nice hotel, and they can kill time enjoying some of the finest bars and restaurants that Bogota has to offer. So right now, we are sort of in the heart of the Zona G bar and restaurant neighborhood. And I'll point out a sushi restaurant that we just ate at. And the sushi was pretty great. Had salmon nigiri that came in a smoked domed glass and was topped with caviar. So yeah, it's that kind of sushi restaurant. KYN Bogota. Yeah, so highly recommend that for sushi if you're coming to Bogota. This idea is kind of a preference of mine as to why I kind of prefer Bogota over Medellin, is that Bogota is more of a city, as you can kind of see by the infrastructure here and the roadways. And I spent most of my 20s living in New York City, so this city to me is like a Colombian New York City, I guess you would say. I just feel more comfortable when there's more concrete. And you know, I think it goes to safety. When cities like this, city centers are populated with busy human beings doing business, they feel less dangerous. And I also feel less like I'm in someone's neighborhood. I mean, in these large cities, unless you're in the barrio, you don't feel like you're in someone's hood. But most of the time in Medellin, I always felt like I was encroaching on someone's neighborhood territory. And I really don't get much of that feeling here. It's more of an anonymous city. I still do get looked at like, what's that crazy gringo doing here? In particular, like right now, why is there a crazy gringo walking around with a camera? But here in Bogota, I just feel like I belong more. In Medellin, I always felt like I wasn't a very unwanted guest, let's say. And the residents just couldn't wait for me to leave. So now we're kind of on the main thoroughfare that cuts through Chapinero, and we're walking through what I would describe as the hotel zone. There's a Hilton right up here and a JW Marriott that I've stayed at before, and it's probably the most secure, the most upscale center of the city. Another great thing about Colombia in general is that it is not only pedestrian friendly, but bicycle friendly. There are bikes for rent like this everywhere, and bike paths. It's a very, very bicycle friendly country. The major cities are very bicycle friendly. A lot of infrastructure for road bikes. A lot of people use bicycles to commute to work, and it's a very active population, super active. At 5 in the morning, I'm typically the only asshole that's up doing his morning walk, but here in Colombia, particularly in Medellin, people have beat me to the punch. There's a crowd at 5 o'clock in the morning. Now we're in Zona T. It is the retail center and center for high-end nightlife. And there's a restaurant just up ahead called Andres. And Andres is, oh, here it is, right across the street. Andres is a famous Colombian restaurant. The original one, which I've been to, is right outside of Bogota by about 40 minutes. All right, they got a spot at the bar for me. I'm gonna head inside. Okay, so they wouldn't let me use my GoPro inside, but guess the cell phone's all right, but I'm still wearing my mic pack, so the audio should be okay. An awesome little pit stop here at Andres. I could not pass by the place and or leave Colombia without trying their chicharrón again. Awesome fried pieces of pork. They're serving it here with guacamole, tomato salsa, spicy salsa, and chimichurri sauce. I'm gonna wash it down with an Aguila Light and then continue my tour of Chapinero. Okay, so that was a real treat. One, because love the restaurant and that chicharrón. Number two, because even though that restaurant is on the spendier side of things, at least in terms of local prices, for the chicharrón and the beer, it was in the service fee. It's like 12 bucks. So didn't break the bank. And fond memories of that place. The first time I went at the original location outside of Bogota, about 40 minutes, I was there with my friend and his wife. They threw the kids out at 10. The place got really rowdy. Everyone got hammered. And outside at like 2 in the morning, they have a soup stand for people that are trying to sort of reduce their intoxication, I guess you would say. And they have a shuttle service so that you can drive out to the restaurant, get completely shit-faced, like fall down drunk. They'll take your keys and drive you home in the van and then pick you up the next day and bring you back to your car. And I think they have the service here because out in back of the restaurant, they had a sign saying, if you drink too much, give us your keys. So it's a pretty great concept. And if you're coming to Bogota or Medellin, they may have one in other cities. I know there's one in Poblado. There's one here downtown. There's one outside of the city. I would highly recommend Andres. Also because one of my biggest gripes about Colombia, really Latin America in general, Medellin specifically, is that there's no bar. There's no like place where you can belly up to the bar as a single man or single solo traveler and sit at the bar and eat and talk to the bartender. There are very few places like that. But in there, I was able to pop in, sit at the bar and order without having to be like seated at a table. That is such a drag about Medellin. There is almost no bar to go out to. People say they're going out to a bar, and then you go into this place, and like everyone sat down, interview style, you know, sitting down at a 4-top with their friends or 2-top with their friend. No one mingles, no one is up on their feet, meeting new people. So it's a real gripe of mine. Not that that was a bar scene in there, but there's like hardly any places where you can even just go and sit down as a solo traveler, sit at the bar and eat. So I did that there. Anyway, this is, I would say, like the heart of the Zona T bar zone. This is where you can blow a lot of money having a lot of fun. It is probably the most spendiest version of bar and restaurant nightlife here in Bogota. And it's still pretty early. It's like 6 o'clock, so nothing's really going off yet, but I may pop into one of these places and grab a drink before I wrap up this tour. Let me see what I can find. I found my home away from home here in Zona T at a place called Overdeveloped. It's simply an upscale burgers and fries joint, but what caught my eye when I was passing by was their extensive and amber-colored back bar. And my suspicions were confirmed when I saw that they did have bullet bourbon. God damn, it is hard to find a decent bourbon here in Colombia. So when the opportunity strikes and I find a place that's selling Bullet or Woodford or something decent, I can't pass it up. That's gonna do it for this video. Please hit the subscribe and notifications buttons if you have not already. And I will see you in the next one after I polish off their bullet bourbon.